It's Roseville59 here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make your very own skateboard speaker MP3 player. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Once it's done, you get to listen and relax to your favorite tunes. Alright, your first step on making your skateboard MP3 player or speaker. I'm going to be adding speakers into mine, basically, like you saw in the picture before. And your first step is finding a template. I happen to find mine online. I found a picture actually and put it into Make the Cut, and then I had it cut out on Cricut, which I have showed on past videos on how to do. So once I got mine all ready to go, the template, mine happens to be 19.5 inches long by 5.5 inches wide. That's what I want my finished product to be. But when you're going to be doing your veneering, which I'm going to show you how to do, but before that, you're going to have to shape your actual project. And the best way to do that is, I happen to have an old skateboard, or skateboard that I had, and I basically put it on its side and got the actual angle that I wanted, and I basically laid everything out, cut my styrofoam, which my styrofoam is 20 inches long, I believe here. Yep, 20 inches long by 6.5 inches wide. The reason why is you want a little bit wider than your template, because when I show you later on how to put in your veneer press, you want to make sure you've got enough room and adjust, and if your veneer happens to slide or anything like that, you can cut it out, and it's no big deal because your veneer does slide sometimes. At least from my experiences, it does tend to slide a bit. So what I did here was basically once I got my piece all cut out to those dimensions and traced my skateboard, I had to figure out how far in I wanted it. So basically I kind of just played around with the scrap piece that I did, and I decided on 3.5 inches. So from your very end point to here is 3.5 inches that I made a mark on it. I did that on both sides. I made my mark. And once I did that, then I kind of lined up on the edge where I wanted it and traced on here the curve from my skateboard, and I did that on all 4 edges. And once I did that, I just took a saw and I basically, handsaw, and I basically just kind of went on angles and just kind of cut through the foam basically so that I could get the shape. And then I just took some sandpaper at 120 grit and I just stuck it on a block and just slightly kind of sand it all nice and down to get a nice smooth surface. Now you kind of do see here just a little bit of tear out. That's no big deal. You don't want chunks missing, because if your veneer is going to be bending it, you don't want it to be bending with the chunk out, otherwise you're going to get little side piece, little bent or anything like that. So once you've got your template, we're going to use that later on, so we'll put that aside. But that's your first basic that you want to do, is get your template all ready to go. So now I've got my template done. I'm not going to be making a real skateboard. I can show you ideas on how to make a real skateboard if you are interested, and I'll leave it on the bottom so you guys can go take a look at those. But for the way I want to build it, I can't have it so thin like a real skateboard. I need to make it a little bit thicker so I can router out for my speakers. So my speakers may not be the same as what you're picking, but that's okay. It can be happening different. It's just an idea that you get. And I'm going to be using a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. Plywood here happens to be oak, just left over from a project. But basically, before I get to that, is I have to figure out how I'm going to do that. The way I'm going to be doing that is just by curve cutting. And curve cutting is basically from your table saw, lots of slots all the way down, equally spaced, as much as you can get equally spaced so that you get a nice curve. So when I put that in that press, with the foam that I have, I'm going to get that nice smooth radius on there because I'm using a bigger piece of wood for this project. So it's basically just wanted to show you that. And you can always try it on a smaller piece to make sure you get your curves and everything like that right. So now back to my plywood piece. It's basically the length that you need to cut it at is 19 and a half by 6 inches. Okay, and the reason for that is my veneer is 6 inches wide, and like I said, you want a little bit bigger so that when you're putting it on your foam here, so that it goes nicely down. So it basically folds nicely down here when you've got it into your press. And taking out the measurements for your curves, that just took a little while for me to figure out what were the all widths and everything like that. But basically what I did here is I laid this one out here on both sides. And you're basically gonna have 3.5 inches. So remember that 3.5 inches I told you about here before on the foam, your 3.5, that is my distance from this point here. I don't know if you can see it here, let me get my square here. You want to measure from this point here, from the end of your piece, you want to measure 3.5. From each end, you want to do that. On each end, you want to do 3.5 inches. Once you've got your 3.5 inches, the mark that you made, you're going to be going this way. And you're going to be measuring 1/4 inch. And you're going to measure 1/4 inch, you're going to do line. Measure another 1/4 inch, you're going to do in line. And keep going on, and you want 12 lines. Once you get your 12 lines, now it's a matter of setting up the table saw to the right height, which on this one, if I try to zoom in here for you guys to see, but when you've got your line down here, there should be just a tiny, tiny tip right up in there. I don't know if you can see it on the video or not, but it's just a tiny little hair. I don't know if it's about a 1/16, I'm gonna say thin. You wanna get that blade right up through that. You don't wanna cut all the way through, because if you cut all the way through, it's just gonna snap and break. You just wanna get up to that veneer point, so it's gonna allow you to bend, okay? So I'm gonna set up on the table saw, and I'll show you how to do the kerf marks. Okay, so once I got my table saw set up to the height and everything of the blade here that I want, basically I just ended up making this little sled here on the table saw, and just got a little clamp here with pressure down. That way then I'm not hitting my fingers as close. And you want to take your 3.5 inches that you measured from the end of your board over to the middle here. And now I'm going to be doing my 12 kerfs. So I hope you guys can see this here, but basically where my line lines up, that I'm going to be lining up with my blade, I'm going to be cutting for every line. That's why we made those lines. So every line you want to basically cut, move over to your line, and then cut, cut, cut all the way through to your 12 lines. So hopefully you guys can see that there. I'm going to go do a cut, and I'll have it zoomed out so you guys can kind of see how that goes. Okay, so now I got a wider angle so you guys can see here. I'm just going to go ahead and make some cuts and show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so I just did my first 2 cuts here, and I just want to show you guys here what it kind of looks like here, if I can. So basically right where my line was, every line that I did here, I just did a cut. So it's basically what I'm doing. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go do the rest on all this side and on my other side here. Okay, now I've finished cutting out all my curves. They will look something like this basically on your board. So that would be the same here on both sides that I have. They both are all cut out, all my curves. What I'm going to do is just lightly, because there's a little bit of chip out and stuff, so when I put my veneer on top, I don't want any of that bumps or anything like that showing. So I'm just going to be basically taking just a sander, orbital sander with 100 grit, quickly do a couple of passes, front and back, and just the edges, just with 120 grit with hand sandpaper, just breaking those edges. I don't want anything to cut my bag when I'm going, because when the bag's in there, it's really going to compress it. And yeah, so as you can see, it already bends into the shape that I want. Okay, and that's basically what this effect is. Gluing your skateboard is going to be, you're going to need veneer, and the veneer that I got just from your local hardware store. I don't know if you guys can see that there. I just basically, because it was 6 inches, so I didn't want to have any waste factor in, so don't waste that much. So you're going to need veneer, and you're going to need glue. The reason why I picked this glue is because it has a 10-minute time limit before kind of clamping up, which is really good because it's going to take you about 10 minutes to get everything all ready. So what you want to do is you want to cut 2 pieces the same length to your wooden piece that you have here. And it's okay if one piece gets a little cracked, because mine, when I purchased it, I happened to have a crack in it. But I just put tape on the opposite side that I'm going to be gluing down on, so it's going to be facing down. And what else you're going to need is some wax paper, because when you put it on your template, the blue foam, you don't want the glue sticking to the blue foam, because that'll be really kind of tricky to fix everything up. You're just going to need 2, just one for the bottom. Then you're going to put your veneer on, and your bottom, then your top, and then just another one just to make sure. And you're also going to need the venting mesh that comes with your kit. And I'll leave a website mark on what veneer press. I just got it from Road Rocket. It's a company that builds skateboards, but your local Lee Valley carries it. And I'll leave a website mark for you guys can check that out after. So what we're going to basically do is kind of get started here on gluing. And you're also going to need a roller. Now I keep my roller, just happen to be in a Ziploc bag because I have been doing a couple of these testing out stuff. So I just kept it in a Ziploc bag and it's pretty good. Just a roller. And I just put my glue in a smaller container bottle just because it's very hard to pour out a big one. So I'm just going to get that ready. And I just have an extra wax piece of paper that I just have on the floor because obviously I don't want to get it all dirty. So basically you just want to squeeze it out just like if you were putting mayonnaise on your sandwich. And you just don't want to put too much glue because you got to remember it is veneer, so it will go through the pores, and that's why it will stick. But you do want to coat it enough so it gives you a nice even coat. I'm just going to put that on. That looks about right. Make sure you get all the edges. Put that on, and then next step is this one here. And with this one's a little bit trickier. You want to make sure you get all your glue in here. So I'm basically just going to take it upside down and just squeeze it in every little spot that there is, just going up and down until you fill it. Push a little back here so you guys can see it on the video here. Sorry, I'm kind of all spaced out here. Make sure you got a nice area. It's just a little cold outside today, so I'm just doing it inside my house. So like I said, that's why you need about longer dry time glue because it does take a while. And don't worry if it seems like you miss spots and everything like that. Don't worry, it will be bending, so you won't be getting glue all over the place. Or when it bends, the glue will go all over the place. Let's finish up here, put a little bit more in here. And don't worry, it seems like the other ones hasn't dried yet. It does get a little bit tacky. I know it seems a little bit longer because I'm talking and doing this at the same time. And there we go, that one's pretty much done. I'm just gonna do it this way here. And you want to try your best lining it up. I know it may not line up 100%, that's okay. But, and I know the veneer will bend a little bit because you did put it on. And when you do put it on here, I have made little marks, but because I am cutting it out. Anyways, you just want to kind of just make sure it's a little bit even because this piece is a little bit shorter. And I like to put just a little bit of glue on top here as well. Okay, and then our last one. Make sure you got a nice full bottle of glue. Mine happens to be getting a little bit empty here, so it's a little more tricky. Oh, and another thing you might need is a shot vac too, or so. I can show you why in just a minute when I get to it. Because this veneer bag basically is a pump by hand. So I'll show you in just a minute why you'll need it too. But just put that on top nicely, as close as possible as you can get. Like I said, don't worry if there's glue a little bit everywhere, it's okay. And basically shove that on top. You can also use tape if you need tape, green painter's tape. Let's move this stuff out of the way here. And you put your mesh that comes with it on top. Stick it inside our lovely bag. So I just want to make sure everything is all filled up here correctly. This is your time to make your adjustments, because once you start putting your bag down, that is it. Now I know this one tends to likes to pop up a bit, so we'll just keep it like that. Okay, and with this bag, I usually like to peel off the tape afterwards, because then your project doesn't stick to it. And now this is the most important part also. You want to make sure that you get all your air completely out. Well, not air out, but I mean like closing it wise, so you don't get any bubbles or anything like that, because that's where your air will leak out. So you want to make sure you take the most important time. So I'm just gonna squeeze this all nice and tight. Make sure it's all nice and tight in here. Because I'd rather do it now than took all the time, the cutting and the work, and then the project doesn't turn out because it wasn't tight enough. So I'm just kind of going over. I'd rather do it. think we're okay. So the next step is basically with this, I have to take the little top off. You want to take that top because if you're using a shop vac, I'm using a bucket head, it's called. It's basically just a small vacuum attached to a bucket, but you don't want to suck that up. And then you'll need your pump out. And I'm going to use a shop vac to suck all the air out. Now you can see I'm putting the lid back on. And you just gotta grab your pump and basically pump the rest of the air out. And you'll kind of feel it too when it's nice and hard. So now basically you want to leave this for 8 hours like this. So I usually do it overnight. And you can sit just like this for 8 hours. And when you're done, you take it out and you'll basically get something that looks like this, nice and curved. So the next part basically is tracing out your template. And what you're basically going to do is grab your template. Now, I did say this was 19.5, but obviously when you curve, you do lose some. In my case, I lost 1 inch, so your template in length actually will be 18.5. So all I did was I just cut it down in an area and just took off 1 inch and just put some tape back on, and it's all good. So basically what I did then is just kind of lined up, because you do, sometimes your veneer will stick out a little bit more on one side, so you just kind of want to figure out where the edge of your wood kind of lines up on the edges, and just basically place it down and just grab a pencil and just trace all the way around your project, and you basically are left with this. I don't know if you guys can see the pencil line here. But that's basically your shape that you want to cut out. And the next step is basically cutting it out on the, I have a bandsaw, so I'll be cutting on the bandsaw. If you don't have a bandsaw, you can be cutting out on a jigsaw, and that'll do the same job. So that's what I'm going to head over right now, is I'm just going to go to the bandsaw and just cut out my shape. And then basically you want to get as close as possible as you can. I'm going to be sanding it afterwards because that's easier to do. So I'll show you after the step of the sander. So you're going to cut this on the bandsaw, then you're going to go to the sander, cut it all out, make it nice and smooth, and I'll show you that when I've completed that. Okay, now that you've got everything all cut out and sanded smoothly the way that you want it to be, the next step is to take a router, and I have a palm, held, hand, or trim router I have here, and I've just got an eighth of an inch round over a bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and round the whole top, and on the bottom side you want to round over your bottom as well. And then next step will be laying out for the speakers. To be different from my speakers. My speakers I just got at the source, and they basically are like this. I got 2 in a pack. So laying out for your speakers may be different, but I'll let you know how I laid out mine. So basically what I did was I first took dimension of how far in I want the speakers. And that is 4 inches from this line is 4 inches. Then once I got my line all the way down, I took my speaker, placed it on upside down so I could figure out where I wanted it. Then what I did is I measured from the bottom from the bottom edge from the skateboard all to the up of the speaker, and that's 3/8. And the top is just about 5/16, very close to 3/8. So just make sure your two bottom parts are 3/8. Your top might be a little bit, but to the eye you don't notice it. So I basically then traced around my speaker, and that gave me my large circle, well, not quite circle, but oval that you see here. Then the next step is you have to take account for what bit you're going to be using. And I basically just took on a scrap piece of paper here, not paper, piece of wood. I took a scrap, so I knew that my depth I wanted 1/4 inch, and for the width-wise I wasn't sure, so that's why I took a scrap piece of wood and just made a little dado in here so I could figure out what it was. And that ended up being a 3/8 wide. So basically that I knew that I had to measure from the edge, from the 4 inches that we measured here in, I knew from that edge I had to measure in 3/8. And the reason for that is you have to measure in from 3/8 from the top, and from the bottom, and from the sides. You have to do. And the reason for that is because when you're cutting out this area here that I have all scribbled out here, when you cut that out, then you have to take your router and router that section out so that this will basically fit in the back. You'll kind of get it more later on when I show you the next step after it's cut out. But for that reason is that basically when you put your speaker in, it will sit in something like this on the back. So you kind of need to know how much far it's going in. Otherwise, if you don't know, your speaker might just fall out, and you don't want that. So like I said, it's a little bit different depending on what kind of speaker you have, because it totally can be different on measurement. And so the same thing I did on this side with all the measurements, and I did the exact same side to the other side. So basically once I got all that out, and this mark here that I have cut out, basically going to drill 4 little holes in here just on the side, very close to the edges. I want to get as close as possible, but not too close, because I don't want it to tear out or anything on me. And then I'm going to take my jigsaw and cut all the way out on the small little area that I have here. And then I'm going to, on the front of your skateboard, then on the back side is where I'm going to be taking it and routering it out. Because remember, on your skateboard, your deck is basically, that is your where the wheels go basically would be on this side, right? Because that's how a skateboard would be. That's where all your picture and design is, and that's when I'm sitting up. I want to see my picture and design, so I want the speakers to be on the back side. So when you see it, speakers will be showing through the other side. Like I said, you'll get it more on the step, but I'll just put on this just in case you guys didn't get the measurements. I'll just put this here for a couple minutes so you guys can take a look of the measurements that I did, so you guys can look at it. Okay, I thought I'd show you guys on what I did before cutting out for the speakers. And like I was saying before, the little circles that I drew on there, I just used a 1/2 inch bit, and I just drilled as close as possible to the squares that I could, and I just drilled them all out on 4 each corners. Did that on both sides, and now I'm just going to take the jigsaw and just go that way, then the blade will fit right into the hole, and just cut right out all the way along, so the area will basically just pop right out. And then the next step will be routering. So once you cut them all out, then what you want to do is you want to take your 1/4 inch bit bearing bit, and I'm going to explain this, how it works to you guys. And basically, from the bearing to the end of the carbide is 3/8, and then your depth wise is 1/4 inch. So basically what you want to do next is you want to take it on the back half and you want to router out your edges on the back. And the reason for that is because then when you put your speaker in, is that it'll sit nice and flush in the back. Now if it's not 100% fitting, I know this one's not fitting 100%, you just have to take a little chisel, and you just basically have to put it in at the back and just take a pencil and just draw a little line. If it's a little bit not sitting flush, take a chisel and then it'll sit nice and flush. And this one here fits nicely in. So as you can see, it fits nicely in. So the next step I'm going to do is just take the same 1/8 of an inch round over bit that I did on both sides, top and bottom, that we did before, and we're just going to go ahead and do just the inside and just the fronts, not the back, just the fronts. We're going to go ahead and round over the front of the piece.